Good morning from the session chair. You know this when you're sitting in an airplane, when the pilot says, we are on our approach to landing. So this is the second keynote for this day. And it's the same, it is the last keynote for this conference, as I assume. So we are on our approach to landing this conference. So this keynote is the title of this keynote is a little bit understatement. Because what will be presented is a real software development industrialization approach. So I would like to introduce Michael Koutensky from the Allianz AMOS. Michael Koutensky holds a DI, and after his DI he started working with Allianz and with AMOS. There he was responsible also for the process development, process improvement. He now is working to implement the ABS core solution for the Benelux, for Belgium, the Netherlands, and Luxembourg. He's also working currently on a topic that is called fast function points. I asked him about his hobbies, and he told me that it was tennis and architectural photography. So now, Michael, it's your stage.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Thank you, Thomas, for the kind introduction, and thank you for inviting me, and also on behalf of AMOS and Allianz to this conference and to give this presentation about our experience of the SPICE methodology in front of this expert community. So, what I'm going to talk today. I had the pleasure during the last couple of days of this conference to enjoy very interesting presentations, mostly from the point of view of the assessors and mostly about the current research which is going on about SPICE, about process improvement. So today I'm giving you kind of the other way around, so you can call it the view of the consumer, and I will guide you through our experience, our story during the last years, and share with you our lessons learned of the SPICE certification we did. So I'll skip through the agenda and come to the key questions right away. So probably all of you know Allianz, the world's largest insurance company. What are the key questions for such a big player in the market? Well, the most essential and most high-level ones are how to cope with the growth and expansion, how to keep the leading position in the market, and how to compete with the competitors. So if we drill down a little bit more to the second question, because it's all about IT and we're here from the information technology branch, how to support the business with the software that actually adds real value to the business processes. Second question. And third question, how to ensure that this software, which is used all over the world, is designed and developed in a sound and operational, functional point of view in a well-defined framework of processes and tools. So also on this third question, I want to especially focus during my presentation. But to start with, I want to give you a short introduction to know what we're all talking about. So what does AMOS stand for? AMOS is the acronym for Allianz Managed Operations and Services. And as it's described in the slide, it's the aim of Allianz. AMOS was founded 3 to 4 years ago to combine all the services that an insurance company needs in one shared service unit. So this is the main idea and the main purpose of AMOS. And this includes not only IT, but also HR services, real estate services, etc. But we at AMOS Austria, where I come from and I work, we provide an international software delivery center. And the software, the product we're producing is called ABS, Allianz Business System. I will give you a short introduction later. So AMOS Austria, what's it all about? There's one department, it's called ABS Core Competencies, and to give you an overview who we are, we're a team of about 120, 130 people, nearly 40 of them the functional consultants, the functional developers of the application, and 80 of them the technical architects and the developers. So what is it that we are building? What is our product? It's as I told you, it's ABS, it stands for Allianz Business System, and it's the main application that is used in the Allianz world. So what also I think I have to mention differentiates it from our competitors is lots of our competitors have different systems for different purposes. So for example, for different lines of business, they have their own system for health, an own system for life business, etc. Or the other way around, they have different systems for the CRM, for the claims management, for the contract, for the policy administration. This is not what we are doing. We combine all of this functionality that all of the employees all around the world need in one application, and this is ABS. And of course, ABS is a multi-platform application, so you have the different bases of ABS on this slide. There's a core insurance application, which is a traditional rich client application, which is installed on your desktop or virtualized. You have a corresponding configuration suite. You have integration with the CDI telephony, which is called Agent Desktop, and you have different sets of portals, which are combined by portlets. So you have a customer portal, a direct portal, a broker portal for the agents. You have a partner portal, etc. And to give you some idea what are we talking about, I prepared some figures to see how big ABS is actually. So several million lines of code. It consists of a client-server application, and it consists of a host and batch application. There's also enterprise service bus running, there are web services implemented, etc. So you can see it's one application with lots of different interfaces to connect to. And also, as you can see in the screen, all the relevant functionality is available from one single screen. And the basic concept behind this is one company-wide database. So this is just a slide to highlight what we at the ABS Core Competence Center in Vienna are doing. So we're providing the ABS Core architecture, the development, the methodologies, the tools, the standards, and what is growing the business is the consulting. Why the consulting? Because our international business share of ABS is growing very fast in the last couple of years. So you see here an overview. Originally ABS started in Austria. It was developed only for Allianz Austria, but then only the Swiss people got interested, the Germans got interested, and now it's globally rolled out in Europe, and not only in Europe, but also around the globe. And yeah, well, this kind of brings me to the initial question and to the challenges we had to face during the last couple of years. The ABS Core Competence Center was founded in 2007, and it started with 40 people. Yeah? And you see here the number of employees growing steadily. We are now about 140 people in 2014 right now. And also, of course, the number of requirements was growing, because if additional customers come in, additional requirements come in. But unfortunately, also the number of defects were growing. So we saw the number of defects are growing, the quality could be better, and so we set some goals, because we were under extreme pressure. The global rollout was planned. ABS was going to roll out in many countries, and we had to professionalize. So we set the goals. We want to reduce the defects, we want to ensure the quality, we want to have highly professional processes, also for our internal processes, but of course also with the interaction with the customer. And for this we have to choose an industrialized approach. And of course, as you see, the number of employees is growing. We also have to reduce the training phase so that they are productive more sooner. I'm going to skip through the slides because you're experts and you already know this, and I will come to the timeline right away. So this was 2010, 2011, and we decided we had to do something. So the first thing we did was kind of a SPI's self-assessment. So in order to identify the regions and the areas where we had to improve and where our weaknesses were, we did the self-assessment, and from this as-is analysis we derived the goals we want to achieve. And this is basically what we did during 2011 and 2013. One of the most important things was the establishment of a so-called engineering process group. So a team of people who are working on the processes, on the improvement of the processes, and on the rollout of these improved processes in the company. During these 2 years, of course, we did lots of internal workshops, lots of workshops with external advisors and external consultants and partners. And we defined the scope of improvements we want to do, and we rolled this out in 3 phases during these 2 years, ordered, of course, according to the priority. And as I'm also going to focus later in the presentation, what we found out was the most important thing was to focus on the people. So this topic here, raise process awareness, was one of the most important things during the project. So in order to do this, in a good and appropriate manner, we did not define the processes by ourselves, and not only for the engineering process group, but for each process, for each part of the software development lifecycle, we brought in the process experts. So actually, the people from the teams, that people that are actually doing their processes, people that were not actually maybe not knowing that they're doing a process, and we brought them in, and together we defined our to-be processes. What we also did was to complete the process documentation, but I'm going to show you that later. And we optimized the tool support. And as I've heard from many presentations during the last days, all of you know and are aware that Excel is not the best tool to do it. So this was also our conclusion, and so we changed it too. Yeah, and finally we rolled out the improved processes and tools. And yeah, well, last year we did the process certification, the SPICE assessment. And of course it's nice to have now the SPICE certified logo and the certificate. But for us it was all about the internal processes and the internal improvement of the company. Yeah. So what we also did, and what I want to mention, is the Intex Trustworthy Certificate. I assume that some or all of you know it. This is kind of a third-party improvement. So we did the assessment, and then all the assessment materials were handed over to another independent company. It's called Intex, and they did actually check if the assessment was done the right way. So we wanted to get sure that everything is right. And yeah, we also won an Austrian process award, but never mind. So this were the processes that were in scope for our assessment. We categorized them in 3 groups: the steering processes, the primary processes, and the support processes. Of course, the primary processes are our daily work, the software development lifecycle. The steering processes with the project planning, the governance, etc. And the support processes like the quality management and the lifecycle management. And our goal was to get a sound maturity level 3 for the primary processes and the steering processes, and for the support processes a target level 2. And this is what we achieved. So primary process and steering processes on target, support processes a little overachievement. And now I'm going to focus on the, I don't know, strategy artifacts that came out of the SPICE assessment. So, as I mentioned before, we here in Vienna, we produce the ABS core. And the basic concept of the core is that it includes all the functionality an insurance company needs. But then, when it's delivered out of Vienna and it's given over to the customer can enrich the application. There are lots of configuration extension mechanisms where the customer can enhance the functionality or override the functionality or exchange it. And of course, the customer also wants to have a concrete planning when is the new version coming out. So we set up a well-defined release schedule. We produce 2 major versions a year. There's a clearly defined structure of bug fixes. There are hot fixes delivered on demand. So all of this release strategy came out of the SPICE improvement and the process improvements. This is a slide about our internal processes, which were also our planning processes, which were also certified. I think this is nothing new, but it's a good and sound planning process. You have the annual planning process, which is going on once a year, and all the customers can enter their requirements, what they want for the next releases. Then we do a project and release planning process, where we actually plan these requirements for the certain releases. And then our software development lifecycle is kind of a hybrid approach in combination of various methodologies. So there are parts of the V model incorporated, there's a part of Agile incorporated, because we're doing it in iterations. And this is kind of our planning pyramid that also came out of the SPICE improvement processes. And now, to lead over to the next slide, I'm guessing you're also interested in how all the ABS rollouts work. And because we in Vienna, I said before, we have a growing share of consulting because all the projects need our support from Vienna, how to do it, how to configure ABS core correctly. So we have come up with a so-called ABS methodology, which is all about the rollout of ABS in the several countries. So I guess the most benefit from this methodology is that we have now in place a standardized approach for all the ABS implementation projects. And I think it's quite obvious. If you don't have something like that, then every project, every implementation project is doing what it wants, and it defines its own processes and its own development life cycle. And when you do the consulting, you always have to think, which country am I talking about? Okay, this country, they have these processes. No. Now we have one standardized methodology in place for all the ABS implementation projects. This is very interesting. This is our process landscape, which was kind of a byproduct of the SPICE improvement and the SPICE certification. And when we started the certification in 2011, we didn't think about publishing this process map. Of course, it was a clear goal that we have a well-defined process map. But the thing we did was, and I'm going to show you, I can see my screen, so I do it here. We have defined a process map, and we've modeled all the processes, and then we thought, why not publish it in the intranet? And this is what we did. This is our ABS core process map, and every employee can reach it from our intranet and can browse through the processes. So, for example, if you're interested in the software development process, then you have the process diagrams. You can drill down, see what the functional design is about. I'm clicking randomly. You can enter the process description. If you want to go into more detail, you can see who is the process expert for that, who can I contact. You have also the process diagrams, the work products in it, etc. So this, as I said before, was kind of a byproduct, but it turned out to be one of the most important benefits during our project. Because now we have one single source. Every new employee, every existing employee can be directed to. And this is kind of the manifest of our processes. And switching back. So to come back to the graph, to the figure I showed you before it stopped at 2012, and now we have the figures for 2013, where all the processes were already in place, some of them even at the end of 2012, some of them during 2013, and we can see that the defects are going down. And this is also one of the expectations we had from our internal process improvement, and we were very happy that it turned out that way. So we could reduce our defects. We have now, as I mentioned before, clear rules in place for all the employees, for all the designers, for the developers, as well as for our customers. It was also important for us to structure the communication with our customers. And by customers, of course, I mean the Allianz countries which use ABS. So it starts with the annual planning process. You need clear interfaces for that. It starts with the requirements, engineering, and it comes down, of course, to the maintenance part. We have now SLAs in place, and they are under regular control. We have an established quality management. There's a higher awareness for the processes and the methods. And what we also did during the engineering process group, there's always room for, always room for improvement, and the employees are actively contributing. And this was also something we hoped, but we did not expect, but it turned out to be true. And the employees are constantly suggesting further process improvements in their domain, in their expertise domain. And this feedback I really got personally from many of my colleagues, that finally there's enough time for quality. And I think this is one of the best feedbacks you can get. Of course, everyone is under high pressure, and you have to you have the delivery dates, and the countries have to be rolled out, etc. But if you do not have time for quality and you just follow your standard process, and there are no inputs for quality assurance and for quality management, then something is wrong. And now they have the feeling that they also can spend some of their budgeted time to look at the quality and to ensure that the quality is right. And this was also mirrored in the Allianz engagement survey. This is a survey that is done by all 150,000 Allianz employees all over the world. One topic is quality and processes. And when we started in 2011, the number was 63% satisfaction, and now it's 98% satisfaction. So we also improved in this context. Now, to give you an outlook what we have planned for the next couple of months and years, of course, the most important thing is to manage the continuously process improvement. We have our engineering process group still in place. This was nothing we just set up for the project. This is something ongoing and something stable. We are currently looking into, on the one hand, this process we have already assessed, maybe stepping to the next maturity level, and also for the processes that were not in scope for the last assessment because they were not the top priority for us. Some of them may be also interesting, and we are currently thinking about expanding the methodology to a new process of the process landscape. Of course, we are working in a big and global context at Allianz Group, and also other Allianz entities are interested in what we are doing in Austria. So, of course, we provide our know-how that we've gained during the last couple of years. What is concretely planned is the certification of Allianz Austria. They're also doing the SPICE certification. And the last thing is probably the most important for us, since we are growing very fast and new projects come up every month. So we deliver our best practice and our experience from previous implementation projects, and also from our ABS core process to the upcoming ABS implementation project. So, this was a short introduction to ABS, to AMOS Austria, and to the processes we have in place. And it's always interesting to have the connects to the real business. So during this presentation, about 2,000 claims were created in ABS, right? Thank you.
Okay, thank you for this presentation. Imagine, this is software made in Europe. Not any outsourcing, not anything. This is a way to keep parts of the software business, main part of the software business in Europe, even if not. Any questions to Mike?
How many Indians were involved?
Any questions? Richard.
Was you first?
Yeah.
Okay.
Thanks. Apart from the ones that you showed in your presentation, what other metrics did you have in place to validate your approach and to validate that you were improving?
Yeah, well, we have several quality gates established during the preparation for the certification. So, for example, we are doing our software iteration. So after every iteration, there are several quality gates that are being checked. For example, the number of test cases run, the test coverage, etc., etc., etc. So there are several metrics in place that are run every iteration, several in place that run every major release. And yeah, the figures I've shown you are from the Allianz engagement survey and from our internal survey we did after we completed the certification.
Okay. Other questions? Rory.
Just a question on the motivation for SPI. So
yeah.
There's many possibilities to choose.
Yeah.
A particular reason maybe, or you chose 15504?
Yes, of course. When we thought about which way to go, we thought about the CMMI and the SPIs, and we finally decided for the SPIs because the software development processes are described in more detail and were more matching to our processes.
Other questions? Yes?
Which tool did you use for the modeling processes? Was active process frame?
For the process landscape and the process map I've showed you, we used, of course, we are Vienna based and we used Adonis. Yeah. Probably you don't know it. Adonis, it's a UML based tool.
Okay.
But it's similar to other UML based tools and like, I don't know, Aris.
Could you tell us more because I didn't hear it?
The name is Adonis. Adonis. Yeah.
Okay, thank
And
you.
it's quite easy to generate this web report.
Question?
This is a self-contained programming unit, essentially.
Yeah.
Could this be used as a model for some other part of the organization if they wanted to upgrade some aspect?
Yeah,
How would you think it?
absolutely. There are kind of three core insurance solutions in place at Allianz. ABS mainly for Austria and for some other markets, and there are also two other applications, one for the South American market and one for the Asian market. And the colleagues from the Asian market are currently looking into our process improvements. We did our SPI certification and also our governance model to maybe come to a similar methodology where you have a core application, you distribute it to your customers and they can create the country specifics.
So this is a de facto standard that you've basically set up for AMOS.
Yeah.
Richard?
Yeah, for me the question was, I saw the clever architecture behind it, because I'm also an engineer in my heart, because it has a huge reuse factor.
Yeah.
So you do everything by configuration parameters. We have similar issues in car industry where we have one device, but we change configuration and application and some systematic curves, and it's the same software and it works a different car.
Exactly, this is exactly the approach we are using. We have one and company-wide data model. We have one company-wide business logic, and then it depends on the interfaces you're using, the technology you're using, if you're using web services, if you're using the portals, if you're using the traditional rich client.
Okay.
There's lots of reusability.
Now comes the funny question there. Yeah. Did you select the reuse process from 15504?
No, the reuse process was already in place before.
Okay, yeah. Because if you want to assess that, there is also a process in 15504. Yeah. Just this was some observation. Yeah.
Yeah,
Okay.
the architecture, the software and the enterprise architecture was already in place before.
Okay. Yeah, it's a key element because otherwise you need the Indians, yeah, or some outsourcing partner, but that's the way you keep the development in Europe.
Yeah, and this was also a question from behind. I understood before there were it was a internal project only based in Vienna. So the ADAS Core Competence Center is only based in Vienna, and the software development is done in Vienna. So there's no external outsourcing.
Okay. Simona, your question?
Yes, I saw that you defined SLAs.
Yeah.
How do you integrate the ITIL process, or do you use also ITIL or other?
Yeah, well, for this SLA process measuring, we use several tools, and we use the tools which we use in this domain. So for example, I'll give an example. For the requirements engineering and the requirements analysis, we use the tool HP Demand, which is part of the HP PPM suite, and we have implemented kind of dashboards and SLA measuring functionality in this tool for this requirements engineering and requirements analysis domain.
And I'm not interested in SLAs particular, but in the item process, service operation. If you are also following a model for an integrated SPIs with the other model.
Well, the actual operation of the software is kind of a little bit out of our scope, because we will provide the core and we have no production environment in Vienna. We hand over the core to the customers enrich the application, and then they go into production and into operation with this. So for the operational purposes, it's not covered in this process landscape.
Any other questions? Okay.